Welcome to R&R Livin' Life. In this episode, Rick and I make our way to Mount Perry and then onto Monto and Kanya Dam. The morning was quite muggy with some cloud cover, but in the big scheme of things, it was probably a better day to travel than to go sightseeing. We left the caravan park just after 7:30. On our way out of Bundaberg, we stopped in at the Botanic Gardens. What a beautiful spot, with three attractions in one: the Ferrymead House, the Hinkler Hall of Aviation, and a historic museum, not to forget the wonderful gardens that we were to explore. Unfortunately, being a Sunday, the Hinkler Hall of Aviation was closed. Hinkler Hall pays tribute to Bert Hinkler, born in Bundaberg, a pioneer of flight, and as a person who had significance in the advancement of aviation during the early 20th century. It would have been nice to explore the hall, but maybe for next time. We admired the Ferrymead House that overlooks the Bundaberg Botanic Gardens, with the splendour of a bygone era. Built in 1890, this grand plantation house includes the Sugar History Museum, exploring the development of the local sugar industry from its earliest days. We viewed the magnificent Indian bungalow architecture and discovered the history of the Bundaberg sugar industry and the pioneer sugar families through a self-guided exploration of the heritage-listed house. From history, we then explored the wonderful subtropical gardens centered around magnificent lakes, which created a diverse habitat, attracting numerous species of birds. We spent over an hour wandering the gardens, spotting turtles, water dragons, eels, and bird life around the lakes. We wandered the timber boardwalks extending across the waterways, observing the purple swamp hens and their chicks, dusty moorhens, black ducks, darters, cormorants, and pelicans. There was so much to see, from the fern garden, rare fruit tree orchard, the rain forest, open forest woodlands, and prehistoric gardens, the bromeliad and cycad gardens, just to name a few. We wandered around Wildlife Island and watched the steam train, once used in the sugar industry, that takes you around the gardens. It was such an amazing place, so calming and relaxing, even with all the bird calls and the friendly geese near the cafe. From the Botanic Gardens we made our way to the Mystery Craters in South Killarney, one of Australia's most baffling unexplained geological formations that has puzzled scientists for years. It was an amazing experience, especially when their origins are still shrouded in secrecy. The Mystery Craters is an unusual natural rock formation and part of the Elliott Formation, with an even distribution of red ochre through coloured sandstone. Three of the craters resemble large footprints, with some that hold water while others do not. They were discovered beneath a layer of silt and sand by a local farmer in 1971. These geological mysteries are still unknown as to how and what made them. The only other landmass like it is found in Africa, thought to be 125 million years old. In the Earth Room was a mesmerizing crystal, rock and fossil display, still in development, but still worthwhile. From the viewing platform we got a panoramic view of the entire area, where we could truly appreciate the landscape's grandeur. We left the Mystery Craters around mid-morning and continued north to Gingin, nestled on the Bruce Highway, halfway between Brisbane and Rockhampton, another town where the highway runs right through the middle of town, and where we had morning tea in the park. Lovely gardens divide the wide streets, and the historic buildings are a reminder of Queensland's pioneering past. Gingin is surrounded by natural rural countryside and fields of sugar cane, with vineyards and olive groves emerging as new horticultural industries. European settlement of the region began in 1848, when Gregory Blaxland, Jr., son of the explorer Gregory Blaxland, together with William Forrester, bought their flocks of sheep up from their squatting leases on the Clarence River. The pastoral run they selected extended all the way to the coast, and they called it Tarawan. The modern town of Gingin is located close to where the original homestead was constructed. It is also one of the only towns in Australia that can link bushrangers, thick scrub, red soil and barramundis together through its unique and varied history and landscape. Often referred to as Wild Scotsman country, as one of Queensland's rogue bushrangers, James Alpine Macpherson, was captured here in 1866. From Gingin we headed west towards Mount Perry, over hilly country bordered by rocky ridges, lots of grass, with some small open flats. On arriving in Mount Perry, we set up at the showgrounds that brought back memories from when I was a teenager and we had visited the show with my maternal grandparents. Another interesting fact was that my grandfather had also been born at Sunday Creek, so Rick and I were on a bit of a history trek. The day had turned into a damp day with light showers and scuds, but that did not stop us from exploring. Mount Perry settlement began in the late 1840s with the taking up of large sheep grazing stations, with mining activity beginning in mid-1869 with the discovery of rich copper deposits that led to a mining boom. Our first stop was at Mount Perry Lookout at the end of Normanby Road that offered us uninterrupted views overlooking the rugged mountains of the Great Dividing Range, including the town and Mount Perry, which dominated the skyline. Mount Perry prospered for most of the 1870s, a period when the price of copper was high and mining in general was experiencing rapid growth in Queensland. In 1872 the first churches were built. There were 25 hotels. Many of these would have been no more than a bar compy with a keg set up on a rough counter. Naturally, these did not last, and by 1876 the town had settled down to 6 regular hoteliers. By May 1872, furnaces were operational, producing an impure metal consisting of 80% copper, smelted from the poor ores, with richer ores dispatched in their crude state. By 1873 the population of Mount Perry was estimated to be 3,000, and a refining furnace was opened that year so that pure copper could be shipped. In 1884 the Bundaberg to Mount Perry rail line opened, promoting new growth of the town, but closed in 1960. The original railhead in Flora Street can still be seen. Just before World War I, with the mine being closed for the holidays at the end of 1913, it did not reopen. The Mount Perry glory days were over. Today, the copper smelter site is now a ruin, with the main surviving feature being the large slag heap formed from remnants of the copper mine in the early 1900s. From the lookout we made our way to Bulboomba Tunnel that extends 192 metres into rock, is unlined and unsupported. It is known as the longest unsupported tunnel in the Southern Hemisphere. It was originally built in 1883 for the railway line between Bundaberg and Mount Perry, but is now home to a colony of bent-wing bats and used to access residential properties in the area. From the tunnel we made our way to the Powder Magazine, a heritage-listed former gunpowder magazine, located in a paddock on the east of Sandy Camp Road, built in 1874 to safely store the explosives used in copper mining at Mount Perry, and is the oldest known surviving government powder magazine in Queensland. The magazine was originally constructed of random rubble, with render masonry blocks to the corners of the building and around the exterior of the windows and the doors. There are thick brick arches above some of the windows, with timber lintels. There is a door and 2 windows in the southwestern side, plus 2 windows in the northeastern side, with the interior walls on the southwestern and northeastern sides recessed for floor joists, but the timber floor no longer exists, and wall vents are set below the floor level, about level with the joist holes. From research, copper nails or timber pegs were used instead of iron nails, and the provision of lightning conductors and copper earthing straps were also used in the construction. From the powder magazine, we drove back into town to visit the old copper smelter slag heap. Rick and I spent time reading the display boards that had been mounted on the site depicting the mines, miners and details of the copper industry. We found the slag heap fascinating as the byproduct of copper production, where the copper ore is melted, had been re-solidified to make tile-like pavers that were layered around the site. It was a very interesting place to visit. From there we made our way to the cemetery, where I found my great-great-grandfather's unmarked grave, along with his brother and also my great-grandfather's grave. The afternoon was quite hot and humid, and by morning had received 2 mils of rain. We spent time at the Pat Augustine Cultural Centre that houses a historical display and where we could do some family history research. The display includes photographs of Mount Perry district dating back to the late 1800s and information relating to businesses and families, with many of the names familiar to me. From the Cultural Centre we made our way to the Mount Perry Bicentennial Museum, which features a working blacksmith shop, a variety of memorabilia including an old fire engine cart, and proudly boasts one of only 3 known restored and working 3-pole stampers in Queensland, and a curved concentrator tables. I was lucky enough to find a photograph of my great-grandmother on display. Located next door is the historic Madson's kitchen, full of memorabilia which showed just how different life used to be. The following day we drove out along Sunday Creek Camp Road in the hope of finding where the Sunday Creek School was. Unfortunately, we did not find it, but it was an interesting drive out and back. Once back in town, we drove out to the beginning of the Mount Perry Walk that is approximately 7 kilometres long, but I piked, as it would have taken 4 to 5 hours, so went back to town, where we drove up to Chute Lookout. The afternoon turned out quite overcast, and during the night there were a few isolated showers, but overall nothing to worry about. While in town, we took a look at the tank in the park, a majestic Leopard A5.1 main battle tank, one of 30 such tanks gifted by the Commonwealth of Australia to various veterans organisations throughout Australia. This tank entered service with the Royal Australian Armoured Corps in 1977 and was withdrawn from service in 2007. Rick and I had enjoyed staying at the showgrounds. After spending a couple of days in Mount Perry, we made our way along the Monto-Mount Perry Road, through forest country and over rises. We passed through the Mungie State Forest, then crossed the Burnett River before getting to Langley. The last 5 kilometres of road before the Burnett Highway were very rough corrugated gravel, a surprise after such a smooth run from Mount Perry. On making the highway we turned north towards Tallybang, through a mixture of irrigated cultivations combined with grazing country. Langley, including the neighbouring Tallybang, is a rural locality in the North Burnett region, with Splinter Creek running roughly parallel and to the east of the highway, and the Burnett River to the south and east, with the area primarily used for grazing on native vegetation, with a small number of irrigated crops growing near the creek and the river. We travelled then on to Magildy. Magildy, in the upper Burnett, was first settled as a township in the mid-1920s. Magildy was an outstation of the Dalganalla pastoral run in the late 1840s, consisting mostly of open plains with patches of brigalow, first used for sheep grazing, until it became better known for beef herds. The Magildy settlement began about 4 years after the arrival of the first selectors in 1924. Dairying grew during the 1930s, continuing into the early post-war years. With the decline of dairying and the conversion to beef cattle, Magildy has seen a general loss of population in the town, and businesses have moved into Monto. On the side of the highway as we entered Magildy is a tall statue of the famed Bunyip, that looks like a cross between a crocodile and a small dinosaur. The Bunyip statue, which holds a cow's head in one arm and a lungfish in the other. The legend of the Magildy Bunyip has lived long in Australian history. Elders and long-time cattlemen have told of bubbling water, disappearing cattle, and eerie sensations throughout the generations. The Bunyip Hole is a still pool, blanketed with green slime, and largely remains silent, except for the occasional buzz of birds and flies. Known to bubble and gurgle, some Aboriginal elders believe the hole is connected to a network of underground waterways. From Magildy we made our way to Three Moon, where the final stage of the Mungar Junction to Monto railway line from Magildy to Three Moon to Monto opened in September 1928. 4 huge silos stand tall beside the railway line. The last train on the rail line was in 2008, with the line officially closed in 2012. We stopped to check out the silo art that depicts an Aboriginal elder sharing Dreamtime stories and of times gone by with his granddaughter, telling the story of the legends of the naming of Three Moon. It was certainly well worth stopping to look at. From Three Moon we continued on to Monto, where we made camp at a caravan park. Monto is home to a long-running dairy industry and a variety of cultural, historic and artistic experiences. First settled in 1924 as a result of goldfields of Kenya and Monal, the township's first buildings were built around 1926. Today the town is dependent on the surrounding agriculture, predominantly mixed farming and timber. It is one of the newest towns in Queensland, when as recently as 1924, under the Land Development Scheme, large properties were resumed and prime agricultural land was provided, in small lots, to soldiers who had returned from World War I. At the top of Newton Street is the impressive Monto Town Hall, built by Hall and Phillips Architects, which was built in 1939-40. Hall was one of Brisbane's most successful architects in the early 20th century. The building is an impressive example of the then fashionable Art Deco style. Monto's colourful dairy cows can be found around the township and local villages. We spotted Olov, painted by the Girl Guides, and Susan, located near the bridge in town, and the Three Moon Historical Complex cow, but there are a further 6 cows scattered around town and 1 in Magildy. I hope you have enjoyed this episode. Give us a thumbs up if you have. Join us next time as we hike in Kanya Gorge and then make our way to Bellawheeler, stopping at Lorgie Hall to admire the view. Enjoy every day and be inspired. Cheers for now. Rick and Rosemary. R&R, Living Life.